Hello, everyone. This is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I, the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful Rabbit Hole Lore and Fray, the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon. Breaking news, everyone. Huge industry-changing news. Shinji Mikami is leaving Tango GameWorks, the studio behind The Evil Within 1, 2, and the recently released Hi-Fi Rush. Ooh, Shinji Mikami himself, the man, the myth, the legend, the creator of Resident Evil, God Hand, Vanquish, one of the guys who founded Clover Studios, who founded Platinum Games, who went on to form Tango GameWorks, has left the company. Presumably because he's not happy with the direction. That is the current state of Microsoft Game Studios right now. They spent billions of dollars acquiring studios like Double Fine, like Tango Softworks, like Activision Blizzard, and funnily enough, all the talent is leaving. All the real talent, all the people that put together, who have a real legacy, putting together genuinely great stuff, are leaving in droves, either retiring or moving on to greener pastures, because Microsoft is a complete cancer onto video games. I am tired, exhausted, fatigued of people trying to deny this, that pretending that Microsoft has ever contributed anything of value of gaming whatsoever. Everything Microsoft has done, from introducing Halo to introducing paid online to normalizing DLC practices to all their terrible IPs, Gears of War, Sunset Overdrive, Hi-Fi Rush, I suppose is the newest example. Everything they've done is just a complete train wreck. And we're really supposed to believe that they are a viable competitor into the video game industry space. There is a reason I don't typically talk about Microsoft, okay? I focus on PlayStation, I focus on PC, I focus on piracy, right? I talk about those industries in regards to the competition against Nintendo. Mobile, I talk about more than Microsoft at this point. But I think this is a really good example of where the acquisitions Microsoft has made are going to lead, in that this is going to be a repeat of the Rareware situation, in which Microsoft managed to acquire the absolute best second-party studio that Nintendo has ever worked with. Rareware, the creators of Donkey Kong Country, Banjo-Kazooie, Killer Instinct, Jet Force Gemini, Conker's Bad Fur Day, GoldenEye, right? Some of the best games ever made in the 90s belong to Rareware. Microsoft took that studio and ran them into the ground within 5 years. Okay? Perfect Dark Zero was a disappointment. Cameo, Elements of Power was a disappointment. Grab by the Ghoulies was a disappointment. Who remembers Viva Pinata or Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts? The only reason people are talking about Nuts and Bolts right now is because Tears of the Kingdom is coming out and seems to be doing the same thing, but better. Rareware is a complete failure of a brand, and it is entirely due, well, first of all, it's on the fault of the creator of the founders, Chris and Tim Stamper, for selling out to Microsoft to begin with, but secondly, it is the fault of Microsoft for mismanaging this stellar brand. You can argue that, yeah, they lost a ton of people. They were going downhill anyway. But, they were perfectly salvageable. There were a lot of things that Rareware could have done to really put themselves back on top and be a viable studio competing against PlayStation and Nintendo. They really could have kept doing what they were doing in the 90s up until the 2000s or later, right? They could have been a major powerhouse development studio for Microsoft. And what did we get instead? Kinect Sports. What did we get instead? Sea of Thieves. We got complete bullshit. Some of the worst games I have seen coming out of any studio. And I don't see enough people talking about it. In fact, I see people try to pretend that Sea of Thieves is good. It is the No Man's Sky of Microsoft right now. I have seen a lot of people try to damage control that game. It is abhorrent. It is disgusting. It is ridiculous. Not enough people are really talking about just how much of a failure that Microsoft is. And I think this is another great example of that. They acquired a studio that they really genuinely believed would provide them with a Resident Evil equivalent. They really thought they would be able to take the Evil Within and like build up on it. They thought they had like a high quality Japanese studio from one of the creators of Platinum Games. But what happens? He's gone. You know, his protege, Ikumi Nakamura, the Tokyo Ghostwire girl, she's gone. She's never making any games ever. But you know, what do they have left? A bunch of like coders? Like I think the guy that Shinji Mikami picked is a Westerner. So they acquire a Japanese studio intent on developing like highly stylized Japanese games in an industry that's dominated by superior Japanese game design. And what happens? They put a Westerner at the forefront of the studio. The studio's dead. Okay, like Tango Softworks, I would argue has never put out a good game. I've never been a fan of anything they've done. I don't know why Shinji Mikami left Platinum to form Tango Softworks. I think it was purely to make the Evil Within. I don't know the exact specifics behind it. Like honestly, he probably should have just stayed at Platinum. Like what exactly did he have to gain by forming his own company? But yeah, like the long and short of it is that like Tango Softworks never really took off. They never really became successful or popular or really have anything going for them whatsoever. I don't know why Microsoft ever acquired them. I don't even remember it being a big deal when they were acquired. I think it says a lot about the current state of Microsoft's acquisitions, in which most people can't even name any of them. You know, what has Double Fine produced? What is like Moon Studio produced? What have any of these? I think they own Respawn. I think they own like all this stuff. Like, what are they going to do with any of it? You know, like when all is said and done, they just own a bunch of properties that they can't do anything with. They are the Disney of video games. Like that's what it comes down to. You know, it's the same exact thing. A bunch of corporate suits spend a bunch of money buying a bunch of valuable IPs. You know, the Muppets, Star Wars, Power Rangers at one point. I'm talking about Disney here. And then they just like run all those franchises into the ground and don't really make anything off of them. But it's okay because we're one of the biggest studios in the world. But the products you own are becoming less and less popular. You know, Disney is losing a ton of money. Like people are tired of what Disney has been doing to all of their big iconic brands. And I think Microsoft is well on its way to doing the same thing. Like Halo Infinite was a complete bomb. People don't want to admit this, but I do think Halo Infinite, or I suppose more accurately, the new Halo trilogy, really failed to capitalize on what made the original trilogy so successful. Like people told them, like fans were adamant that like we don't want any follow-ups. Like we're happy with like the way the series ended, and there's nowhere really for the story to go. Microsoft just decided that like yeah, we got to milk this cow into the ground, and that's what happened. We have a property, we have a development studio, 343 Studios, that has been like doing everything possible to destroy whatever legacy that Halo has had, to the point where like a lot of the most hardcore fans of the franchise are completely sick and tired of it. There is no redemption for 343 Studios. There is no redemption for Halo. There is no coming back from this. Halo is never again going to reach the heights that it enjoyed back in the early 2000s. It is never again going to be one of the industry's prominent IPs. It is never going to be successful. It is never going to be popular. It is never going to return to form. And I think it's not going to be the only one. We're going to see this with every property that Microsoft owns, not just Halo. It's going to be Call of Duty at one point. It's going to be like the Double Fine stuff. It's going to be like everything else they've bought over the years. Like they just simply are not going to provide anything of value to the consumer. And I think we're already seeing that with games like Starfield. You know, the current state of the Elder Scrolls 6. Like studios are really struggling working under the Microsoft banner because Microsoft does not respect gamers. They don't respect the gaming development cycle. They don't respect the industry. They don't know how to make video games. They never have. All they've ever done is throw money at a property, like at a product in order to get it to take off, and they completely fail. You know, they would never, in a vacuum, have been able to compete with Nintendo or PlayStation. They only have remained relevant for the past 20 years because they keep throwing money into Xbox. I hope that this is the last Xbox generation. I hope the consoles get faded out. I hope we no longer see them, and I hope we can kind of return to like a Nintendo like a Nintendo dominant culture. I think the way things are looking right now, it's going to be Nintendo, PC, and mobile. And you know what? I'm perfectly fine with that. That's where I want this to go. The console war is over. Nintendo has won. Let's just make consoles, like what platform you choose to play on, just a matter of preference rather than or what you want to play, as opposed to being this thing where you just argue about nonsense that doesn't really make any sense. Like, let the casual players have their PC and mobile, while the hardcore players just play Donkey Kong or whatever. Just there was no purpose to PlayStation on Xbox. They've been running on fumes for years, and I really hope this is another sign that this industry is dying. Shinji Mikami is probably never going to produce anything good ever again. He's too old. He's like 57. He's been talking about retirement for a long time, and I think he should retire. Okay, honestly, it's been like a decade since Evil Within. What exactly does he have to really develop? Honestly, I think going forward, we will see more and more companies, more and more passionate, talented developers leaving this industry. And those that remain are going to move primarily to Nintendo consoles. Those who are serious about making new, interesting video games that are enjoyed by their user base are going to be primarily on Nintendo platforms.